The Shadows and Splendors of the Dutch Empire, a historical exploration. In the annals of history, the Dutch Empire stands as a testament to human ambition, a story woven with the threads of grandeur and grim realities. Our journey into this past begins with the Dutch's remarkable rise, marked by their resilience and ingenuity. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the Netherlands, a small nation in Western Europe, emerged as a formidable maritime power. This era, known as the Dutch Golden Age, saw the Dutch Republic assert itself as a dominant force in global trade and exploration. The Dutch, primarily Calvinist, were known for their religious tolerance, allowing various beliefs to coexist, including Catholicism and Islam. The turning point for the Dutch came with their hard-won independence from the Spanish monarchy. This liberation was not just a political triumph, but also the catalyst for their transformation into an empire. The establishment of the Dutch East India Company, VOC, and the Dutch West India Company, GWC, marked the beginning of an era where the Dutch charted new courses in unexplored waters, creating expansive trade networks that spanned continents. The VOC in particular played a pivotal role in establishing Dutch supremacy in trade. It dealt in a plethora of goods including silk, porcelain, and Asian tea, which were highly coveted in Europe. These ventures brought immense wealth to the Dutch, but this prosperity had a dark underbelly. Like many empires of the time, the Dutch were involved in practices that cast a long shadow on their legacy, including slavery and colonization. The Dutch pattern of expansion mirrored that of their Iberian predecessors, with conquests stretching across Europe and beyond. Their imperial ambitions led them to dominate distant territories, often at the cost of subjugating and enslaving thousands. This period of Dutch history is marked by a complex interplay of economic prowess and moral ambiguity. As we delve deeper into the Dutch Empire's narrative, we encounter a mosaic of events and figures that shaped its course. From the early days of instability under King Philip II of Spain, to the revolt led by William of Orange, the Dutch story is one of upheaval and transformation. The 80 Years' War, a prolonged conflict with Spain, saw the Dutch fight for and eventually gain their independence, leading to the formation of the Dutch Republic. This historical exploration reveals the multifaceted nature of the Dutch Empire. It was an era of significant cultural, scientific, and economic achievements, yet also a time marked by conflict, exploitation, and colonial ambition. As we journey through this complex tapestry, we gain a deeper understanding of how the Dutch Empire shaped the world we know today, and how its legacy continues to influence contemporary society. The global footprint of the Dutch Empire, expansion and colonial ventures. As the Dutch Empire expanded its horizons, its influence extended far beyond the European continent. The Dutch East India Company, VOC, and the Dutch West India Company, GWC, became instrumental in establishing colonies and trade networks across Asia, Africa, and the Americas. This period marked the empire's zenith, where its global footprint was most pronounced. In Asia, the Dutch set their sights on the lucrative spice trade. Indonesia, with its rich resources, became a focal point of Dutch colonial ambition. The Dutch established a stronghold in the Indonesian archipelago, controlling the spice trade and exerting their influence over the region. This control was not without conflict and resistance from local populations, and the Dutch often employed harsh measures to maintain their dominance. The story of Dutch expansion in Africa is closely tied to their ventures in Asia. The Dutch used the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa as a strategic stopover on their route to the east. Over time, this stopover evolved into a colony, with the Dutch establishing a permanent presence in the region. The impact of Dutch colonization in South Africa is profound, leaving a lasting legacy that is evident even today. The Americas also felt the reach of the Dutch Empire. In the Caribbean and South America, the Dutch established colonies and engaged in trade, particularly in sugar and other commodities. The Dutch presence in the Americas was marked by both economic pursuits and military engagements, as they contended with other European powers for control and influence in the region. Throughout these colonial ventures, the Dutch Empire was involved in the transatlantic slave trade, a dark chapter in its history. The Dutch transported enslaved Africans to work in their colonies in the Americas, contributing to the widespread human suffering and exploitation that characterized this period. The expansion of the Dutch Empire was a complex interplay of exploration, trade, and colonization. It brought about significant economic gains and contributed to the empire's status as a global power. However, this expansion also had far-reaching consequences, both for the colonized regions and for the empire itself. The legacy of Dutch colonialism is multifaceted, marked by cultural exchanges, economic impacts, and enduring controversies over the moral implications of their global pursuits. The era of conflict, Dutch rivalries, and military engagements. As the Dutch Empire reached the zenith of its power, it inevitably found itself entangled in a series of conflicts and rivalries with other European powers. These confrontations were not just battles over territories, but also struggles for control of lucrative trade routes and global influence. One of the most significant conflicts was the Dutch-Portuguese War, which played out across the globe from Brazil to Indonesia. This war was fundamentally a battle for control of the spice trade, a lucrative business that had become the backbone of the Dutch economy. The Dutch, with their superior naval capabilities, eventually gained the upper hand, seizing key Portuguese colonies and asserting their dominance in the spice trade. Another major conflict that shaped the Dutch Empire's history was its involvement in the 30 Years' War. This devastating conflict across Europe saw the Dutch Republic supporting Protestant states against the Catholic Habsburgs. The war, while primarily a religious conflict, also had significant political and territorial implications for the Dutch, who were seeking to consolidate their independence and power in Europe. The Dutch also faced rivalries with emerging European powers, notably the British and the French. These rivalries were marked by a series of naval battles and conflicts over colonies, trade routes, and influence. The Anglo-Dutch Wars in particular were the testament to the fierce competition between the Dutch and the British for maritime supremacy. These wars saw some of the most significant naval battles of the 17th century and had a profound impact on the balance of power in Europe and beyond. The Dutch Empire's military engagements were not just about territorial expansion, they were also about protecting and expanding its trade interests. The empire's vast network of colonies and trade routes required a strong military presence to defend against rivals and maintain control. This military aspect of the empire was a double-edged sword. While it helped secure Dutch interests, it also drained resources and eventually contributed to the empire's overextension. The era of conflicts and colonial rivalries was a defining period in the history of the Dutch Empire. It was a time of military might, strategic alliances, and fierce competition. These conflicts not only shaped the empire's territorial boundaries, but also its economic and political landscape. The outcomes of these engagements had long-lasting effects, setting the stage for the eventual decline of the empire and the rise of new powers on the global stage. The final chapter, Legacy and Decline of the Dutch Empire. As the sun began to set on the Dutch Empire, a series of economic, political, and military challenges signaled its gradual decline. The empire, which had once commanded vast territories and controlled key global trade routes, found itself struggling to maintain its expansive reach. Economically, the Dutch Empire faced stiff competition from rising powers like Britain and France. These nations, with their own expanding empires, began to eclipse the Dutch in global trade and naval power. The costly wars and military engagements had drained the Dutch coffers, and the empire found it increasingly difficult to finance its overseas ventures and maintain its colonies. Politically, the landscape of Europe was changing. The Peace of Westphalia, which ended the 30 Years' War, marked a shift in the balance of power. The Dutch Republic, once a dominant force, was now one among many competing states. Internally, political strife and a lack of strong leadership further weakened the empire's ability to respond to external challenges. The decline of the Dutch Empire was not just the end of a political entity, it marked the end of an era. However, the legacy of this empire is multifaceted and enduring. The Dutch Golden Age left behind a rich cultural heritage, evident in art, architecture, and science. The empire's contributions to global exploration, cartography, and trade have had lasting impacts. Cities around the world, from New York, formerly New Amsterdam, to Cape Town, bear the marks of Dutch influence. In former colonies, the Dutch legacy is more complex. While the empire contributed to the development of these regions, it also left behind a history of colonization and exploitation. Today, the legacy of the Dutch Empire is a subject of ongoing reflection and re-evaluation as we seek to understand the full scope of its impact on the world. Conclusion. As we close this chapter on the Dutch Empire, we're reminded of the intricate tapestry of history. The story of the Dutch Empire, with its highs and lows, its triumphs and tribulations, is a testament to the complexity of human endeavors. It's a narrative that spans continents and centuries, leaving a legacy that continues to shape our world. For those of you who've journeyed with us through this exploration, we hope it's been as enlightening as it has been entertaining. The rise and fall of the Dutch Empire is more than just a historical account. It's a story that offers insights into the human spirit, our quest for exploration, and the consequences of our ambitions. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating tales from the past. Join us as we continue to unravel the mysteries and marvels of our world's rich and diverse history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of discovery alive.